Hello and welcome back to the Dream Stream, the Art of Fundraising, Day 4. We're almost in there in the home stretch here, and today we're going to talk about how to ask for money. Hint, don't. But before we do that, I'd like to invite anyone who wants to share how our conversations are showing up in your dream realization process. What's happening as a result of all the things we've discussed in your thinking, in your conversations? Talk to me. What's going on?
Well, in terms of my thinking, I realize that it's more about like relationship building and finding out what the other person is into, what lights them up. Um, and I have some prospects that I'm, scheduling meetings with who I know are passionate about the same things that I am, but I want to, dig deeper into that. And it takes time.
That's one of the challenging things about the dream stream is it's not a time-bound flow. And so things that you think you need to have happen right away sometimes don't. And some that things that you were ready to deal with in a year or two just show up.
Mm-hmm.
Abigail Lewis from Golden Rule Reentry in Medford was startled this year when she had a plan in 2 or 3 years to open houses to provide lodging to formerly incarcerated people. And then they showed up. And she had an opportunity to negotiate for 2 houses and had to decide, okay, I was going to do this in a few years. Can we handle this? Or Planting Justice in Oakland that was struggling to meet payroll and got an email. Can you talk to this woman? She wants to give you money, and she wanted to give them $5 million.
Huh?
They just
Wow.
got the first $2 million last month.
Wow.
And it was kind of fun because I'm on the finance committee there. I used to be the treasurer of the board, and I looked at the financial statements for the month, and I said, "Gosh, it looks to me like there's $2 million more in our checking account than we thought there was." Those are fun surprises to have.
Wow.
And there's an old Taoist principle about the natural spiritual flow of life that when you get your internal consistency with what you really care about and what you're doing at a sustainable pace in harmony, then things flow more naturally. And that's very difficult to accommodate in day-to-day living when you have bills to pay and health crises and children to get to school, to consider, oh, this is a moment for self-cultivation. It's not the same as science of mind and the new thought power of positive thinking. It's much deeper about who am I in the world? What is the purpose and meaning of my participation in this life? The Taoists don't particularly use the phrase my life because I don't own this life. I don't own what I'm going through. I have the privilege of being a participant in a flow of aliveness. And everything in this world that we perceive as the manifest world is a manifestation of awareness, a holographic moment of duplication, of replication, of presence everywhere, always, of some divine presence in whom we live and move and have our being. And so being in harmony with that is more important than the daily deadlines and due dates and gotta do's right now. And finding that balance is part of the art of fundraising because it's a marathon, not a sprint. We have to be able to keep on keeping on even when it's not working on the outside. And that comes from knowing that what I'm doing is what I care about, that I would be doing it anyway, and we can get through this. Before we talk about asking for money, I want to share a couple more examples of how sometimes it doesn't work out. When I was teaching sustainability in business at Presidio Graduate School a few years ago, actually a few decades ago, one of our regular speakers in our sustainability in business class was Elliot Hoffman, who founded Just Desserts. And Just Desserts is still around in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I think they're in Costco and Walmart and various other places now. And Elliot had created Just Desserts out of his mother's cheesecake recipe. He happened to know how to make really good New York cheesecake and developed his business catering parties in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then they started producing product to be distributed in supermarkets and stores and supplying other caterers and that sort of thing. And someone had said to him, if you freeze your product, you can get it into Walmart and Costco. And he had borrowed $20 million to buy a building and develop the technology in order to be able to make that jump. And they had the building, they had the technology. Their grand opening of the building was scheduled for September 12th, 2001. Of course, September 11th, 2001 was an event that nobody had planned on. And
I had
all of a
airline
sudden,
for that day.
nobody was doing parties and catering desserts, and the whole thing fell apart. And he lost the business. He ended up selling it. Another of our speakers was Greg Steltenpole, who started Odwalla Juice.
Mhm.
And around that same time, a little earlier, as they grew nationally, a child in Denver died.
Mhm.
And they thought it was because of drinking Odwalla unpasteurized apple juice. And they investigated the entire supply chain, never found the source of the E. coli. The feds helped. They hired private people. Of course, they flew. I think there were 2 children who died, and they flew to meet with the parents and were, horrified and commiserated with them and settled immediately without any lawsuits. Did everything they could, but the share value of Odwalla went from maybe $12 or $14 a share to $1 a share. And he wasn't able to raise the money except by selling the company to Coca-Cola. And he stepped away. Sometimes getting the money doesn't happen fast enough, and sometimes even getting the money isn't enough. And so we have to kind of surrender to the flow of the dream stream and know that life goes on. Now, conversely, sometimes it happens in serendipitous ways. People show up who help and care and support. When Gary Erickson started Cliff Bar, he did it to make a better protein bar because he was a mountain biker. And after years of development, they had a big conglomerate interested in buying Cliff Bar for $60 million. And he and his partner went into the final meeting. The papers were on the desk. All he had to do was sign. And before he signed, he said, I need to walk around the block to make sure that this is the right thing to do. So he went out, walked around the block, and in his walk around the block, he said, I'm not willing to give this up because it's something I created, and if I sell it, the quality will suffer, and it won't be something I'm proud of. I can't do it. He went back in the room and said, I can't do it. His partners subsequently sued him. He had to raise $40 million to buy them out, and did. And Cliff Bar is the Cliff Bar that we know today because he's still involved. And it took a serendipitous path. He had to go a very different route than where he thought he was going to go in order to get the money. Similarly, Real Goods in Hopland which has a solar living center, tried very diligently for a few years to raise money from venture capital investors and failed. And finally, in desperation, they wrote out to their mailing list. They had a catalog, a solar living catalog, and they wrote out to their mailing list and said, "Hey, anybody out there want to buy our stock?" And they did. The subscribers to the catalog bought out the stock, and that's where the Solar Living Center came from. When we copied Berkeley in Boulder, Colorado, a while back, where Berkeley had put together a campaign to finance solar energy conversions using property tax obligations so that the solar loan would go on the property tax bill. We tried to do that in Boulder, and it was very difficult to raise the money. So we did it locally. We put a bond issue on the ballot, got it passed, and our $6 million bond issue sold out in, I think it was an hour and a half. It was a really short period of time. So it's just no way to know which way it's going to go, how we're going to get the money, where we're going to get the money from. I can kind of go on for a long time about people coming up to the precipice and sometimes going over the precipice or sliding back down the mountain. All those years that it feels like Sisyphus pushing a rock up the mountain to get to that watershed moment. It sometimes happens in ways that we didn't know were going to happen that way. So the key is not in asking for money, but in developing relationships with people who can help. And that is more about listening than it is about talking, because people who have resources, who share the values that we are implementing in what we're doing, whether it's a for-profit business or a nonprofit project or a co-op or your personal life, being in communication with people who care provides the fertile ground in which dreams can grow. And I want to ground this a little bit in how do we reach out and how fast can it happen? Because in the dream stream, what I'm offering to you here is a different flow than what we usually think of as the sales cycle or the solicitation cycle or asking for money. Because this is a unique process for dreaming up a life worth giving. It's not just about getting the money, but getting the whole package. So I put the videos from yesterday and the audio up on YouTube and Google Drive, and the links are in the LinkedIn group. These links look like LinkedIn links when you get to the group, but they still take you directly to the file. And if you're not in the LinkedIn group, let me know, drop me an email, and I can send you the links directly. And the process we've been talking about here is this cycle of 7 C's. It's sailing the 7 C's, the confluent intuition, creative imagination, careful intention, conscious attention, concerted action, calm reflection, and consistent gratitude. It's very important to take a deep breath and reflect on where you came from and where you've gotten to, and to feel a moment of gratitude for all the blessings that have brought you to the place where you are, and then engage in the cycle again to get to the moment where you're sitting with or talking with someone who can help. In the broader context of raising money for a project or a company or an event, I recommend starting with an approach letter, which can be an email. And the easiest way to do that is with somebody who is known to the person with whom you're going to be meeting, who has influence over them. A friend, a family member, a business associate, someone with whom they've made money or accomplished results in the past, so that because of the name that the invitation is coming from, they're going to be predisposed to want to talk with you. And that might be you. But having that sense of influence, not in the sense of being able to get them to do something that they don't want to do, but beginning the approach to confluence, where you have someone who opens up by caring, and to have it be about caring works a lot. So in the LinkedIn group, I've put a link to a template, to a sample letter or email. And the fundamental shift in the Dreamosophy approach is setting up opportunities to listen. And that's done by asking for advice. And I mean that honestly. When I talk with people, I actually do ask for their advice. I'm interested in their advice. And I tend to be pretty honest about where I am, or where the project is, or where the organization is, to say, here's the dream, here's the situation. This project is $100,000 behind on their taxes. If we don't get a partner within the next week, the county's going to repossess the property, and the eco village is not going to happen in the way we thought it would. Or we just received a grant for $500,000, and now we're looking for another $120,000 match, whatever the situation is. But then I ask for people's advice. I don't ask them for money. And so this sample letter is just about designing an email that's an approach to ask people for an opportunity to speak with them. It's not an information piece. You can attach an information piece if it's somebody that doesn't know about the project, but it's really just about getting an appointment to talk with them, preferably in person. I'm old, so I like IRL, pun intended, Mara. I like to be in the same space with someone so that we can pace ourselves and not have a delay in the audio and all that kind of technical stuff. And also, I like to see people's environment. I like to meet them on their turf if possible. And the purpose of this approach is to tell people, look, we're not going to ask you for money yet. We'd like to ask for your advice, because we're considering undertaking an effort to raise a significant amount of money. But before we do, we want to be assured of the possibility of success. And so we're asking to talk with a small group of key individuals who might be interested in financing or helping this project, and who might be able to introduce us to the people who can do that. I've been amazed at how fast this can happen. Sometimes it takes months or years. Sometimes it can happen all in one day, to talk with the people who can offer advice on how we can get to where we need to be. And so this is a letter designed as a 1-page 8.5 by 11 letter, and you may want to edit it if you're going to use it as an email, and just have a few key sentences. And it's important that you think about who the most influential person is, because especially in an email approach where it's going to be brief, if it's coming from someone who has influence with the person that you're approaching, that's going to be more effective many times than just having you do it yourself, or having somebody on your staff do it. I've just always enjoyed getting referrals from people who have a high level of influence. And then we get to that point in the 7 questions where we ask, if you were asked, would you join the board, and could we count on you for a personal investment, etc. And this is what we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about today. But before I do so, I'm going to slow down and invite you to comment on what I've said so far. What's happening in your process of raising money and support? Where are you in knowing what you need next, and what you're getting, and where you're stuck or where you're challenged?
Yeah, so my business is called IRL Social Skills, and we teach autistic and other socially struggling teens, young adults, and their families how to initiate, cultivate, and sustain relationships. This is a really, there's a lot of intervention is directed towards those who are younger than 11, and there's a dearth of services for those who are older. My interdisciplinary team has been working since March of 2021. We have received a lot of like really positive feedback. The hitch has been with, the cost, and we are private pay. We're not yet covered by insurance, although I did have a meeting with the head of Providence Health Plan on Tuesday, to who was charged by his boss to find an innovative program to help. And this is for Oregon, Washington, California, Texas. So this would be a really
Only half the country.
Yeah, only half the country. So this would be a super amazing opportunity. But what I'm up against right now is making payroll for
Yeah.
October. And we were, further, we were acknowledged by the US Chamber of Commerce as one of 70 out of 15,000 applicants as an honoree for America's top small business.
Wow.
So that was pretty amazing to be like such a young and small business and to receive accolades from the US Chamber like that. I was at the Invest conference in Chicago, Invest Conference for Behavioral Health in Chicago, and everything is ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. And medical professionals will tell you that it doesn't work. It's really expensive and it doesn't work. I was also in DC for to be recognized last week. So I've been on the road, I've been networking. And so now we're just like right up against it, because October 31st is around the corner and I have people to pay.
It's a watershed moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for your candor. And please stay for the VIP session today, and if you have time, we can get into that a little more deeply. Otherwise, let's you and me find time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have another meeting at 10:30, another meeting at 11.
Well, you should go do those. Keep on pedaling.
Yeah, thank you.
Or to use my favorite kayak analogy, keep on paddling. You're in the dream stream. And I admire your tenacity and your sincerity and your commitment to what you're doing. When you get out into the flow of the dream stream, it's important to keep your paddle in the water.
Thank you. Yeah,
paddling forward.
It's, we solve problems in healthcare, in education, and in the workforce gap.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I have a grandson with Asperger's, so
Okay.
thank you for that contribution.
How old is he?
He's now 22. And but that was one of the difficult things, was finding any affordable resources. Our daughter's a single mom, so that was an issue. Clearly, there was a really great center in Berkeley, but it was very expensive.
Oh, really?
So it would seem like people would love to subsidize that, so it'd be more available. Is that accurate?
It seems like somebody would want to subsidize that. Well,
yeah, I mean, because it would, of course, be something I would, given that I know not everybody perhaps can afford. Certainly that's what we ran into. It was so not affordable.
yeah,
So,
I mean, I have an interdisciplinary dream team that teaches UCLA's program for the education and enrichment of relational skills, the PEERS program. It's the only evidence-based parent-mediated program available. Yep. And it's a group model, it's a class. Parents learn the skills of how to be their child's social coach. Because social skills are where the rubber hits the road, and people can be really smart, but if they don't have that, social interaction, social communication piece, life is a lot harder
Yes.
in a lot of ways, and some end up paying the ultimate price.
Oh, yes. And
Mhm.
it's not good.
No, it's really not good. And I was at when I was in DC, I'm like, well, as long as I'm in DC, I should probably talk to some policy makers. And so I talked to the interagency for autism collaboration commission, and they are under the National Institutes of Mental Health, National Institutes of Health. And they were like, wow, what you're doing, there's not a lot out there. And we know that the mental health situation is abysmal, and that that what is out there doesn't work. And so, like, taking this like curriculum out of the ivory tower of UCLA and making it into a format that is actually scalable is we've done that, and we have proof of concept, and we have all of the data to support that what we're doing is working. And now we just need funding to help it scale.
Wow. Yeah. I can't even imagine, I just how people, well, I know where we are. Well, there's someone that has written neurodiversity, someone I went to graduate school with, and
Nice.
he just talks about the horrors of attempting to turn these children into what they're not rather than the gifts they are. Like, he's a particular, I'm wondering if he would be any support for you, Nick Walker.
Oh, I know Dr. Nick Walker. Yeah.
Yes.
We've been in touch.
But I mean, just anyway, with he could fund, because he's so passionate about the way that he remembers being treated, just how atrocious it is. So the celebration, because that's really what you're doing. You're bringing the celebration.
Yep. Yeah, we were last in touch. I'm just looking at my email. We were last in touch of May of 2021.
Oh, so he just plods along. He was in my graduate school class, and he was at a watershed moment then.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, he had no idea. He had no money. Everything looked hopeless. I remember we spent a lot of conversations, and just holding on to that dream and that vision of who you are.
Yeah, because we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed.
You're extraordinary.
I know, totally. And we're misunderstood. And the bulk of funding, only 9% of federal funds goes to interventions. The rest goes to answer the question, why do you exist? Why are you here? That's the wrong question. The question should be, how can we support you now that you're here? Yep.
So anyway, he'd inspire. Yeah, I just love. I can hardly wait to see what he's doing next. But he was in that moment. We were in graduate school together from about 2008 to 10.
Nice.
And those were hard times finding the way, particularly out of how it had gone. And it was, as you say, all social.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you understand? Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Pat, no, I'm so moved. Yeah, my grandson's done great. He's had great school programs, great family. He gets to be himself.
Yes. Great. And as long as he has friends, with whom he can celebrate the joys of life, and people who will be there, for him when things get hard, because things inevitably will, he's good.
Yeah. For all of us, they're hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, imagine 91% of autistic youth have never had a close friend.
Oh, his older sister's probably the closest. She's always adored him.
Oh, that's so great.
Adored him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
and we're good grandparents. We just love him anyway he wants to be.
So Mara, let's keep in touch over the next few days closely. because
Yeah,
this is
thank
an
you.
important moment for you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
What a difference. How many are we talking about, the population that you're going to reach?
Well, there's an estimated 50 million Americans who are neurodivergent. We have done the market research. And it's not just autistic, it's also, people with ADHD, they're dying for social skills.
Right.
Yeah,
So 50 million, that's a substantial number.
billion,
And all the people they touch. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And yeah, so it's a very, and we are not ABA. Our lens is not behavioral. Our lens is social and sensational. And it's not a compliance-based program. And it's been really incredible to deliver this program. In addition to that, the peers curriculum, we also add in neuroscience-backed nervous system education for co-regulation and self-regulation. Yeah. So it's very unique and super necessary. Thanks for
Thank
that.
you. Yeah. You're awesome.
Yes, you are.
Someone else?
Oh, I'm not. I had some thoughts earlier. I'm loving this conversation. That was lovely. And but Paul, I want you to prompt again, if you would.
Yeah. Where are you in the process of raising funds? Like,
Right.
how much do you have? How much do you need? Where are you stuck? Mara said it so beautifully. Everything's in place. We just need the money. And that is often the case with people who are interested in the art of fundraising, because otherwise, why would they be interested? And the intensity of getting up to due dates and deadlines, my history is to borrow money on my credit cards to give it to my clients so that they can meet payroll. And there have been times in my life when I've also been able to give people hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm trying to learn not to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm old, and because I find that it's much more fulfilling when people can create it on their own. But I empathize intensely, and as I've shared on the first day, empathy is not one of my great skills. I'm actually empathy challenged in my own neurodivergence, and so I'm interested to know, before we talk about how to ask for money, just where are you in the process?
Yeah, I'll say a little. So I'm Amy, if I haven't met you guys. And I jumped in and started running a screen printing shop here in Oakland, California, and didn't know how to screen print nor how to run a business. So that was it's been an interesting time. It's been about a year and a half since I've kind of owned the space and we made a purchase and made commitments, of what we were going to do. And then things kind of shift and change and grow. And now I have a beautiful space, a great little shop where people come in and we talk about possibilities of what they want to make. Like, I want t-shirts for my band. Yesterday, this sweet band from Portland, just moved to Berkeley, came in and talked about the band shirts and that they want to help make. They have, show coming up or music coming out in December. So they wanted me to make them, but then I was like, well, we could actually make, it's more affordable if you guys want to learn how to make them yourself, and you can come back and rent space at my shop, and that's really affordable, and you can be part, I'm thinking of like a membership, and so ways that you have like people who return, we can also make the shirts for them and make a portion of them, or make them after they learn and they decide this isn't the most important thing to do with their time, whatever. So it's still kind of evolving, but that's happening, which is beautiful. But I am really living month to month and losing money still. And I think my challenge has been during this is I'm a fear of communicating with people. about, like, I love communicating with people who find me because they need me. They need a screen printer, right? So I'm having fun with that, but reaching out to people who I've known in the past and that this is what I'm doing now. And, you know, yeah, so I think that there's some personal stuff that I'm reconciling, and it's just like hard to live when you don't know, yeah, how you're going to make payroll. I had an employee, and I think, as it was both time for him to move on and also time for me to kind of like do this without him. He taught me a lot about the things I needed to learn. So I'm doing this without doing a payroll, and I realized that's kind of the position I was in. Like, I can't keep paying people, so I'm gonna have to figure this out. So I need, yeah. So it's hard to know what I need, because I feel like I need a lot, and it's all on me. So I need some partners, maybe. Yeah, and I'm still figuring out kind of what I am gonna, really owe in taxes, and I'm not had a hard time just keeping up with that. So there's a lot of unknowns.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
let me just offer a couple of comments, if I may. How we voice these moments and these challenges matters.
Mm-hmm.
And what matters is not necessarily the words you use. What matters is that you're coming from your heart. But I have found over the years that it is much more effective to be interested than interesting. And it's really challenging when we're facing our own unmet needs and painfully aware, like on the edge of tears, aware that this is it for me. If I can't get what I need now, I may not be able to keep on keeping on, because I just don't know if I can do this. And I talked the other day about Joan Baez and Martin Luther King, where he just felt like he couldn't keep on keeping on. She didn't know what to say to him, so she sang to him. And these are the moments when we need a friend, but much more than a friend, we need a partner. We need a supporter. We need somebody who's going to put their money where their mouth is, or help us find somebody else's money to keep on keeping on. And in those moments, it's challenging to be interested again, to once again, it's like being a mom. Honey, I'm tired today. I can't deal with your I wants. My dad used to say to me, too many I wants. And the kids kind of sort of get it, but they're kids and they keep on being kids no matter what we do. And the same is true with creditors and employees. There's like part of being an entrepreneur is being the one who's supposed to not be needy, like to be the voice of possibility, to keep putting forth the vision that other people can commit to. And one of the sad truths is, in business, being needy is not very effective.
Yeah.
And so we can't tell it. I mean, that's why this group is here, so you can share for a moment what's really going on. When we helped John Denver start the WinStar Foundation in Old Snowmass, part of his vision for WinStar was what he referred to as a Lone Ranger Ranch. That some of the people who are out there working to change the world, Bucky Fuller and Michio Kaku and Tony Robbins and all these people that were out working to make the world that works for everyone, could come to a place to offer their standard workshop fare, but then have a few days to sit down together and just admit, this isn't working, that isn't working, I don't know where to go from here. My friend Doug Dretke, who runs the Beto Institute of Justice at Sam Houston State University in Texas, Doug used to be the Commissioner of Corrections for the state of Texas, convenes groups of prison wardens and prisons commissioners and brings them together to talk to each other as peers. And the conversations that happen after hours and at the break are the opportunity for them to say, it ain't working, I don't know what to do, and then to talk with each other. And so part of what the Art of Fundraising online is about is for us to come together and say, I really need to raise money right now. or this project isn't going to happen. And to get that out and then go back to being the beacon of possibility and the invitation for people to realize their own dreams and to be interested in, you get to be, Amy, you get to be interested in the band and their t-shirts.
Mhm.
You don't need to tell the band, I
Yeah.
need you to fill this order today or I can't meet
Yeah.
payroll. So that's where the 7 questions comes in, and learning the format of the 7 questions as the outline of a conversation for possibility, of a conversation that leads through what people care about, to do we have interests in common, to what would it be like if, and in between, it's what do you think of this? What do you like about this? What do you not like about that? And then once you're getting their advice, then you can begin to talk with them about how would you feel about, or what you think of this idea. You're not asking them for money. You're asking them for their advice, their perspective, their opinion. What are our options here? And not everybody can help. I'd say depends on the project and the moment in the economy, but 1 out of 4, 1 out of 8, 1 out of 20 is the person who can help. Most people want to help, but don't have the right timing or the right resources. And so it's important to assess quickly whether or not this is a conversation that's going to be productive for both of you, and not spend time trying to get people to do stuff that they don't want to do or they can't do. Just anywhere in the conversation, if your sense is either this person can't help, doesn't want to help, I don't want to work with them, that's when you thank them very much for their time. Ask for referrals. Ask the question, if who should we be talking with that we might not have thought of? Who can you think of that might be interested in what we're talking about? And move on, because you want to get through those 20 people as quickly as you can, to get to the people who offer to help. So that I highly recommend, in your sharing with prospective supporters, deleting the word need from your vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not true, it just doesn't work. And need, want, desire, your organization, your dream has no needs. Their dream, their values, their passion are what you're here to learn about and listen for the confluence. The other piece is difficult for your own health, and that is putting up with the knowledge of how dire it is and not coming from that when you're sharing with someone else. And once again, the way to do that is to be interested, not interesting. So it's like having a sore thumb. It's hard not to think about your sore thumb when it's hurting. And yet, if you're not with a thumb specialist, they don't need to know about your sore thumb. I worked my way through college leading dancing at weddings, as I've said many times. And at somebody's wedding, they don't want to hear about my challenges with paying my rent. They want to hear, let's dance. And so it's a little bit like show business, not in the sense of being insincere, but in the sense of having multiple versions of yourself. And so the needy, hurting, insufficient self is present. And you can also be the wonderful, caring, empathetic, entrepreneurial, visionary self. And you get to decide who gets the microphone in any moment. We're not denying our own needs. We're not denying the needs of our organization. We're just giving the microphone to someone else for a little while in order to establish a connection with someone that's based on their needs and their desires and their wants. And of course, a lot of neurodivergent people have challenges with doing that. And a lot of neurotypical people have challenges with doing that. And so for me, I really enjoy this phrase, a version of myself. And it's very common in the culture now, but the first time I heard it was on a introductory film for Pie Ranch in Santa Cruz, which is this wonderful organic farm that kids come out from the city to learn where food comes from. And one of the middle school students that they were interviewing, who said she'd never been out of the city before, said, at Pie Ranch, I get to be the best version of myself. And that was the moment at which I recognized that we have situational selves. If I'm being Mr. Folk Dance and inviting people to come and sing and dance and have a good time, I don't need to tell people that my foot is hurting. I also need not to pretend to myself that my foot is not hurting. Maybe I'm not going to stamp with that foot today, but I still can be both. I can be the needy person and the wonderful person. And what works in fundraising is somewhere in between: the realistic person, the one who is honestly being interested in someone else and answering questions as needed, and getting through yet one more conversation, because this one might be the one. And that's, as I said earlier, a marathon, not a sprint. It's a matter of conditioning. And it's why I ask people to practice doing the 7 questions. And so I want to just say a couple more things about how not to ask for money, because I've spent quite a bit of time on this question of how to ask for money. And my greatest insight came from Tracy Gary, who wrote the book, The Art of not The Art of Fundraising, Inspired Philanthropy. Tracy doesn't ask people for money. She asks them how they feel. And it's a wonderful insight into the transitional moment. And so one of the things that she will say is, I was thinking of you for a contribution of $10,000. How does that feel to you? So she's not saying, I want you to give me $10,000. She's not saying, can you make a contribution of $10,000 today? She's asking them how they feel. And another way of saying that is, if you were asked today, how would you feel about making an investment contribution loan guarantee of $10,000? It gives people an opportunity to tell you honestly how they feel. And that's nourishing. It creates a deeper bond. I've asked people for $1 million contributions who end up giving $500 or $1,000. I've never had anyone be offended because I asked them how they feel about making a large contribution. They tell me. They say this is not the best time, or, actually I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I could do that. And so the last phrase that I'd like to offer is, would you consider making a gift or investment of a specific amount? Now, the other thing that you'll see in the document that I shared in the LinkedIn group is this question about, and let me see if I can just bring it up, if I can get to it fast enough. How much do you ask for? And I don't always ask for a specific amount, because sometimes I don't know. And so what I do is I use this chart and I adapt it for the scale of giving or investing that I'm asking for in this particular project or proposal. And I'll ask people, if you were asked to make a contribution, would you do so? And at what level? And then I just push the chart across the table. And they look at the different ranges and they'll tell me the range that they're most comfortable with. I'm not one of those people who tries to get as much as I possibly can in every possible situation. I'm interested in the relationship, in the longer term relationship. And I don't mind if somebody who's capable of giving $1 million gives me $100, because it opens the relationship and it opens the communication. And more importantly, it opens the opportunity for them to introduce me to people that they know. who might be interested in supporting. So that's just another possibility, is to create a donation chart like this. And once again, this is as a Word doc in the LinkedIn group, so you can adapt it. One of the skills that I don't have is graphic arts. So I don't do beautiful, artful graphic presentations very often. I'm pretty stark in my neurodivergent presentations, but you can, I'm sure, make this more beautiful and adapt it for your own use. So those are the simple ideas that I can offer for how not to ask for money. Get comfortable discussing money. Get comfortable bringing up money. And you may not, well, let me say it a little differently. Get more comfortable. Practice discussing money with prospective supporters, because it's okay to be nervous about it. It's okay to be apprehensive and to say so. You know, I haven't done very much of this. I don't think I'm very good at asking for money, so I'm not going to ask you for money today. But if I asked you for a contribution, would you make one? You can create your own informal, spontaneous, sincere way of sharing that. I'd like to ask you for money. I'm not going to ask you for money today, but could you just tell me how you feel about making a contribution and at what level? Kind of the Columbo approach. Now, this is not the only way to raise money. It's not the only way to not ask for money. And many people are very successful asking for money. I want you to contribute $100,000 this year. Can you do that for me? And they do. So you can develop your own style. I'm not telling you not to ask for money. I'm just telling you, if you're apprehensive about asking for money, try not asking for money. Try asking people how they feel, and sharing with them the opportunity that you're there to offer, and let them decide. And each time someone tells you no, that's somebody you don't have to pressure into doing something they don't want to do. Thank them, ask them for referrals, and move on. Because the more people you talk to, the closer you'll get to the people who recognize what you're doing and say, oh, this is great, I want to help. Tell me what I can do. And I'll finish with one last story, and that is the guys who made The Cove, which is a really scary and disturbing film about the slaughter of dolphins in Japan. There's a cove in Japan where they herd dolphins and murder them every year. And these guys wanted to make a film about it, to try to do something about it. And my friend Bruce Orrick introduced them to someone in Boulder who was a scuba diver. Scuba diver in Boulder, Colorado. Not exactly the scuba diving capital of the world, but they went out to lunch, and Louis was talking about his project and talking about their interest in scuba diving, and he was kind of crying in his beer about how we really want to get this film made and we can't find the funders. And these guys said, well, what do you need? And he said, well, to get the pilot made, we need $1 million. They said, okay, we can do that. What else do you need? You just don't know who you're talking with. And sometimes people show up at unsuspecting moments in unexpected places who are able to help. They did make that $1 million gift, and the film went on to win the Academy Award for Best Documentary a decade or so back. And so don't be afraid to talk about money, to say honestly how much you need, and be sure to say that you need a little more than you think you need, because you're always going to be able to use the money if you get it. Any questions or comments before we segue into our VAP session, where I won't talk and you get to talk? All right. Thank you all for listening about
What's the homework?
for money. The homework is to adapt the approach letter to your own project. So the approach letter is on LinkedIn. Download it, send it to a friend, practice adapting it as your approach letter to ask someone for their advice. And if it's urgent, it's fine to say, do you have, do you have any time this afternoon? I need to talk with you for a few minutes. I usually say 15 to 30 minutes because it gives them more time to talk.
Mhm.
But you can accelerate this process. It doesn't have to take a long time. And if the need is urgent, you can do it on the phone or on Zoom. One of the great challenges in the modern world is schedule chess, calendar chess. You know, trying to find a time when the two of us can talk is really daunting, especially when your need is urgent. And so sometimes I find calling 20 people and saying, do you have time to talk now? Or, you know, in the next few hours, do you have 15 minutes that I need to ask for your advice? And it's really important. Sometimes works better than, okay, I'm free on November 8th at 2:00. Oh, wait, my car broke down. Can we postpone for a week? You know, or let me send out a doodle poll to find out when the 5 of us can get together. No, just call people. I'm old enough that I still do call people. Some young people get offended when I call them, but we usually get through it. So that's your homework, is to adapt that letter for your own use. All right, I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you guys. So good to meet you.
Yeah.
Bye. See you tomorrow.